Kenny Loggins, before we talk about anything
Mhm.
else, my first question, and maybe most important question, is what are some of your favorite things about me?
Enough of me talking about myself. What do you think of me?
Yeah. Tired of talking about me. You talk about me for a while. How are you, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
We're good. We're hanging in there.
Yeah.
Daisy and I are learning a lot from this, and
Yeah.
we're getting, we're getting by. I think more than anything on gratitude every day.
Yeah.
Grateful that we're together. Grateful that we're not going through this alone. Grateful that we don't have to go to work. Grateful that we can sort of ride this out for as long as need be without really any particular worry other than the obvious, which is the safety and health of the people that we cherish. And that's a pretty good place to be if you got to go through this.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's similar for you, right?
Somewhat. I have 5 of my own children, and then my girlfriend Lisa has 4, and then 2 of whom still live at home.
Right.
The most difficult thing for me has been that to stay connected with my children who are scattered in other places.
Yeah.
And that, because I have 2 ex-wives and 2 different families there, and then now being with Lisa, I really basically have 3 families.
Yeah.
And how I connect with each of those families is, so I was looking at, last night I allowed myself to listen to the news, and I'm on a very limited diet of how much of that I can take without having my adrenals go, what the fuck? Like, oh my God.
Especially at night, I would avoid listening, like going to the news right before you go to sleep. That's my advice to you, my friend.
Yeah. And to many people.
Yeah.
And I think the news is geared for those who haven't yet taken it seriously.
Yeah.
And who are still thinking, I'll just have a card party, or I'll hang out with my friends, or blah, blah. And, now the last thing I heard was that it's recommended that everyone wear a mask when going into public, because
Right.
the insidious thing about this, as I understand it, and there's, news coming out every day, but that a person can be what they call sloughing the virus for 2 days before they show symptoms.
Yeah.
So what keeps it spreading is people who don't know they're sick and are out in public, maybe at the market or whatever, pumping gas.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're showing symptoms. So whoever you saw in the last 2 days has been in some way, you've been contagious.
Right.
And so that if everybody wears a mask, then even though it doesn't protect you from getting it, if you already have it, it keeps you from spreading it. And we don't, and because you have it for 2 days, you can have it for 2 weeks, but you really don't slough the virus itself. In other words, be contagious till 2 days before you show symptoms. So during that time is when we're inadvertently spreading it to each other. So in some of the cities, they're recommending now, because this mask hoarding and the people having masks when they're needed in the hospitals, they haven't come out and said everybody should do this. They've just sort of said, we recommend that if you're going in public,
right,
wear a mask.
And it can be a makeshift mask. It can be a hank.
Yeah.
Daisy got me a really funny one with, like, it's a skull but with dimples. So I mean, it's perfect for me.
Really. And that bandana you used to wear in the 80s, you can pull that out.
Thank God I didn't throw it out.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, don't you find though, Kenny, that one of the many things that is particularly that adds to an extra level of fear about what's going on is that this seems to be a moving target every day. It seems like every day there's either new information about it or there's correction of old information. And one of the things
I sent you that one thing that that I saw online, the doctor in
That
New
was
York who,
so helpful. That I can't thank you enough for that. And I sent it to so many of my friends, and it made them feel so much better. That was such a great. Kenny's talking about this link. It was an ER doc in Brooklyn, correct?
in New York, and the biggest hospital in New York, 1,500 beds.
And he went. It was a long YouTube
Yeah, phone conference.
phone conference, but it was so worth watching because, again, information is power. So he covered so many of the things that we're all wondering and worried about, and at least hearing from somebody that's on the front lines, that's on the ground, was really comforting. Just to have that information, to listen to him say, listen, if you get a package, here's what you should do. That's what we need. We need people that we trust, not politicians. We need people that are on the ground.
Yeah.
To tell us, here's how to manage each and every daily aspect of your life right now.
And it's basically simple. You know, it's like when you touch stuff, he's using the mask to teach himself to stop touching his face.
Right.
We all have these things that we do.
Right.
Like you with picking your nose all the time. This is the sort of thing that you know we should stop doing.
Just because you've seen me do it like a dozen times doesn't mean it's a habit.
Yeah, I know, and other orifices. we are using this information. You know, you should post that thing on. Do you have an information board for that, a spinoff from your show?
No, but I could certainly link to it.
Yeah, I think people would want to be able to access this thing.
Yeah.
Finding reliable information isn't going to just terrify you and not give you a plan of keep your family safe. Well, and this is a thing that really, how to keep yourself and your family and those around you that you love. Like you said, you send it to everybody you.
Well, and then a couple days after that, and I'll send you this link. I can't believe I spaced and didn't send you the link, which I will as soon as we hang up. But I did one of these chats with my physician, Rob Heisinger, who I think you've probably met him through the years with me. He's been my doctor for almost 40 years. And he was the doctor on The Biggest Loser, the TV show The Biggest Loser, helping people lose weight. Pretty renowned physician. And he's based out of Cedars. And so he's dealing with this like every day. And it was great to sit and ask him a lot of the questions that, some of the same questions that were in that video that you sent me. But, you know, being able to really get into it with somebody that I'm close to. I mean, he's my doctor, so he knows me intimately. But he's also my pal, you know. And so there were a few things in it that I thought were a little controversial. I mean, his opinion about, he thinks that everybody should just be able to still go outside and exercise, and as long as they keep a safe distance. And I kind of feel like maybe right now, yes, exercise, because his point was, and I'm curious what you think about this. His point was that obesity and just lack of fitness is killing people on a daily basis as it is. Mm-hmm. So don't use the virus to stop exercising and taking care of yourself.
Right.
My only argument to him was because he's a real outdoorsy guy. So he runs outside and he hikes and he's like, you know, I really feel like that's gone a little bit too far. As long as we keep a 6-foot distance, you know, you can be outside, you can be on a hiking trail. And I just said, look, man, like maybe for the time being, we just work out inside like Jack LaLanne did, you know?
No, I tend to lean towards what he's saying, because not only is it keeping you physically fit, it's pumping air through your, you know, to get your heart rate up, gets more air into your lungs. It's improving lung condition. And it's also good psychologically.
I agree.
If I don't really work out, if I don't do something that I'm loving, I tend to move a little more towards depression. Yeah. And this is a really rough time for that. I was thinking when I knew you and I were going to talk, I've been sending you notes and thinking, you know, what about this? What about that? You know, I know you've covered so many topics already. Mm-hmm. And what struck me was that what I can really authentically talk about are the things that I do in my life that Lisa and I practice that are part of what we've had to do, you know, the coping mechanisms, if you will, for this period of time. And I started writing them down. I sent you the notes this morning, but I'm sure you looked at it and went, "Holy crap, this is more than I have time to read."
Well, wait, before you get into that, because I want to, if you don't mind, because if we don't have to, because we said we can just sort of randomly go at it. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is I would imagine that one of these coping mechanisms for you is meditation, because I realized when I saw that note, I remembered, you know, you and I have been friends for a long, long time. When I met you, I think I was about 19. And I remember you were the first person that I knew who meditated, at least at that time. You meditated every day. I remember calling your house and a couple times, like we were going to go play racquetball or we were going to meet up for lunch or whatever. And I called your house or just to talk to you. And Eva, your wife at the time, said, he's meditating, but he'll be done in half an hour or whatever. And I remember thinking, huh, like you were really dedicated to it. So, and I think we've had a conversation about meditation because I've gotten into it in the last few years, but talk about your life with meditation and where you're at with it now and how much is that helping you right now with this?
It helps a lot, especially on nights where I can't sleep or I wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble getting back to sleep. Meditation for me, my son Luke, who's 26, meditates. He's been using this time he's a yogi as far as a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
And he uses the time to do yoga and meditation and spends most of his time doing that. Or he's also an exerciser. You know, he works out, he surfs. The idea that they're closing the beaches, I think, is in reaction to the spring break kind of madness that was happening. But really, he and his best friend are living here, and they go to the beach, they surf, and they keep total distance. I think the way this disease is spread, according again to that video we talked about, you have to be within proximity of someone who's sick or touch something that they've touched and then to put it to your face.
Right.
So as long as you're practicing washing your hands or using some sort of wipe, you know, a Purell thing, then, you know, door handles, it's amazing how many things we actually touch when we go out in the world. So you've got to stay up on that.
I'm in isolation for over 3 weeks, and every day now I put sanitizer on every doorknob in the house, and even the little knobs in the kitchen and stuff like that. I've become so neurotic about it now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that may or may not be over the top, because if you're not being touched by other people, and if you've been together for over 2 weeks, I'm assuming.
Yes, but Kenny, we still get packages. We still are occasionally touching things, and that's the other.
Well, that's when you wash your hands. If you open a package, you throw away the wrapper and you wash your hands.
Right.
You're not, as long as you're not going from one of those things to around the kitchen or whatever, and you know, then you're, if there is something on the package, you're moving it around.
Have you personally done a bag of groceries into your house routine yet?
Have you seen that video?
I've seen a bunch of videos, but until you do it, you know, and I had a bag of groceries and I kept it
labor intensive. Yeah.
It's like, I felt like I was Mel Gibson defusing a bomb in Lethal Weapon. It was like, you know what I mean? It was so, and I kept thinking, wait, did I use that paper towel which bag should I, it's like, we're not really wired for this. So it's like, it's learning.
That's the learning curve on what they call the new normal, right?
Right.
You know,
in certain ways, I think I'm just I am deliberately over the top about certain things. Like I'd rather be fucking neurotically safe than sorry, you know?
Well, there you are then, that's your choice. But I think that I saw a doctor showing how to keep a clean space. They use basically the same technique for unpacking groceries. You know, cans, fruits, things that have been possibly handled by other people, they have to be wiped off. It takes a lot longer to put your groceries away. And then we store things in the garage for a period of time.
Yeah.
And I, I want to talk about the family system. That part of the job of cleaning the groceries is not mine, because I'm old enough to be the person who stays away from any potentially contaminating situations.
Right.
So Lisa, or one of the children, they have learned how to do that task, and we've divided up the family tasks. So being a new member of this, we've only been together a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So a new member of her family, uh, I've come in and introduced some of the things that I've done in my previous families, one of which is family council, because her two kids, very similar to a lot of people I know. One is 15, a boy, and a daughter who's 19. And she had already moved out and had been out for about a year. And suddenly she finds herself back in her home with her mom,
Ooh.
back in, you know how that feels. You're suddenly being treated as if you're a little kid again.
Because you got new rules, you got house rules. It's like you live here.
I just escaped from that, and now I'm back in it. Now what do I do? And I noticed there was a lot of tension there, so I brought in a thing that I used to do years ago called family council. And so every couple days we'll sit and we have a thing called a talking stick, and basically it's a one of Lisa's old crystals, and whoever holds the talking stick talks without interruption. So you don't get in arguments.
Right.
You just express, and I've asked each of them, and they do this really well, to start with an expression of gratitude for either the people in the circle or something that they're noticing in their lives, just to set the tone for a more positive expression of relationship. But then if you've got something that's really bugging you, that's the place you've got to bring it up.
I would begin with gratitude by saying, I would hold the crystal and I would say, I am grateful to have this opportunity to teach you stupid, ignorant motherfuckers a thing or two.
Right. Well, that sounds like you. But the point is that what struck me was that the home, when you're really in a closed loop circle, that home is like a lifeboat now. Yeah. And it has to be respected in that everybody's got to have a job to do that helps everybody else out. And in the concept of the family council, we're now in each other's faces. And there's no real way to escape whatever drama is going on. So it's better to step in and express what you're feeling, and then conversely, to be able to listen to what other people are feeling, if there's something that's troubling them, and use it as a problem-solving situation, and not just airing grievances.
How often are you doing the family council?
We're doing it every 3-4 days, and then Hunter, who's 19, requested that we do it with a therapist next time, because she had some big stuff. And basically what I saw was that she wanted to find a new way to communicate with her mother, because she's older now and she's an adult, but she feels like she's still being treated like a child. But it's very difficult for her to express that. And she needed an ally, a mediator.
Right. So
they pulled in an old friend who's a therapist. And the last one that we did, she sat in. It was a 3-camera Zoom. Lisa and I were on one camera. The kids were on another camera, and then she was on the third. And I think it went really well. And they managed to express that, and Lisa was willing to hear it and understand, I have to kind of change my style now. I have to talk to her in a different way and listen in a different way.
Right.
So my point is that, this may not have happened if we hadn't had to be in quarantine. Oh. And what positive things can come out of this was kind of like, I'm looking at it this morning going, what can I talk to Richard about? Is there anything positive that I'm learning? Is there what thing are we really getting out of this? And I think it's been, there've been a lot of things on the list. I was surprised to see I had like 20 some things on my list.
Yeah, but you just led us into into one of, I think, the most important topics, which is what are the silver linings? And I have talked to other people about this, but it's a pretty daily conversation between Daisy and me. And we've been together now for 6 years. I'm married for 4 and change, and so we're still sort of newlyweds, but we're now at a point where we've been together long enough. We generally just get along so well, and we don't bicker and we don't argue about silly things. But in the last week, we've had a few more and finally, I think last night we really zeroed in on the fact that it was just misdirected fear. We're both trying to be optimistic and positive and grateful on a regular basis. And so the sort of stupid, me reacting to something she said, which was I just overreacted. I just reacted wrong to it. And we started to get into this thing. And then within the confines of talking about that thing, it finally led us to go, oh, you know what? I'm just misdirecting the fact that I'm scared. I'm not really scared for myself. I'm scared for myself a little bit, I mean,
it's natural.
Yeah. I'm really scared. Every time Daisy scratches her beautiful nose, I get a little maybe don't touch it. I've become a little neurotic about it because I am seeing the numbers double every day. I am seeing it's not an old person's disease or someone who's immune compromised disease. I'm seeing, there was a thing today that I just saw right before we dialed in that was so heartbreaking. A bus driver who posted a video a couple of weeks ago. He had a woman get on the bus and cough without covering her face, and it really irritated him. And he got off the bus and he did this video on his Facebook, and he said, I'm out here, I'm a bus driver. I'm out here serving the public. I'm doing my job, and we have a pandemic going on, and you're going to get on my bus and cough without covering your mouth. It's just, guess what? He died today. He died today. This shit is so awful. And getting more awful by the day, that the fear I'm dealing with, and I'm sure you are too, because we live for our kids. We're dads, and we are musicians, and we're creators, and we're individuals. But you and I have talked about this many times. We are dads, and I think all 3 of my sons are doing the best they can, and they're being really responsible. But I'm really kind of freaking out a little bit. The last couple of days has been extra hard for me, and not to go too far on another tangent, but it circles back to when fear is a primary feeling in you, you're going to sort of misdirect it. You're going to get bicker.
So I would say you need to get out. You need more alone time, and you need to get outside, and you need to exercise and blow that stuff out, because fear creates a physiological response. And if we just simmer in that fear all the time, our adrenals are always firing. You're in fight or flight all the time.
Exactly.
It's not healthy, and it actually drags down your immune system.
Totally.
So that's not doing you any good. So a steady diet of the news, a steady diet of the numbers, a steady diet of fear is not going to help you.
Yeah.
Enough news to stay educated in what you can do to try to stay healthy. But the truth is, we've got a bug that the human race has never seen before, and it's having a field day. And we have to try and flatten those numbers. So if you have a mask, if you get out and it makes you feel more comfortable to wear it, wear the mask. But actually, based on what I heard yesterday, we should all pretty much wear some kind of mask, or as you said, a bandana, some way of avoiding spreading what you may have already caught. God forbid.
It's there's no downside to wearing a something.
But really exercise and trying to create alone time so that we don't take it out on each other.
Yeah.
And also just to blow that fear thing, that tight stomach, that constant surveillance of, are all my kids safe, and what am I doing, and am I safe? Because I tend to forget that I'm an older guy. It's easy, we think of ourselves as.
I remind you all the time.
Yeah.
You hear me?
But
I said, it's weird. I remind you of it all the time. Um,
Yeah. Looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, one of the things I think we mentioned was how lucky we are
yeah,
to to have the technology that we have.
yeah. That this,
Because imagine if we couldn't connect, with with, with the telephone, let alone the telephone. But if we connect with the like doing on Sundays, I now do these Zoom calls with my kids
yeah,
because my oldest boy, his wife, and my granddaughter are holed up in the house. My second boy's living in Eva's guest house.
yeah.
Bella and her partner are living in their home. They don't go out like you. They're more secluded. Um, and Luke's living here in a house on the Mesa, and and then I spend most of my time with Lisa and her kids. So I have a closed loop, but it's my family, and everybody's on their honor to keep that loop closed.
Right.
And you just pray.
Great. That's a great way to put it, because Daisy and I had a conversation last night about if this thing does continue to get worse, which it looks like it might. As safe as it seems that my boys are, one of them has, two of them have steady girlfriends. One of them is single.
Mm.
We're discussing, creating a family compound at a certain point, but it's going to have to be, I love the way you just put that. Like, it's got to be on your honor that you're not going outside the family unit, that you're not doing anything that could threaten the family unit.
Yeah, and my kids all know that if they do step outside the family loop, the closed loop, they're putting my life at risk.
Right.
Because theoretically, what you said about it being not just old people, I haven't followed the numbers on that, but it seems like the deaths are still primarily older people.
Right, but that's a statistic that I'm going to try to get today, and if I get an accurate one, I'll send it to you. Apparently, it's a between 9 and 11% mortality rate if you contract the virus. I want to know, of that, let's call it 10%, which is high, which is
That's
a really high
way
mortality.
higher than I heard.
If that is accurate, what percentage of the 10% falls into the category of over a certain age or generally immune compromised?
Yeah.
Um,
And that's why I was thinking the same thing this morning. We need to know the truth of what's going on. And when somebody said to me, well, nobody knows, I said, bullshit.
yeah.
Scientists have been studying this for quite a while.
Yeah.
They're doing a deep dive every day. They need to know the statistics of who's really at risk. I shouldn't bring this up on, maybe I should. There's a thing about Advil going around.
Yeah.
Is that true or not?
According to my physician, yes. He has advised me and my family to switch to Tylenol because there is some link to Advil, which is, I'm spacing. Advil is ibuprofen or Tylenol?
No, Advil is an NSAID.
Right. There is some statistical correlation between that and Advil and in that particular blood thinner that.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure glad I don't have that stock. God, imagine somebody at Tylenol is going, check this out. I'm just going to throw this little thing out there.
Right. Well, I mean, again, I think.
I hear my music cures. Never mind.
Yeah. You want to put that one out there?
Yeah, we're going to put that out there.
It was hydroxychloroquine and Kenny Loggins ballads. Those are the two treatments for.
I can't explain it.
By the way, how many people have said, because I almost did it today, how many people have checked in on you to say, are you doing okay? And you texted back, I'm all right.
No, I haven't done that one yet, but I will from now on. I'll just send a link.
What else? We get into, just to finish up the other thing. This is something that I've been encouraging people to do. Daisy and I have been encouraging people to do really from the get-go. I think even in the first couple of days of our self-isolation, we started this habit with my sons and my mom on Zoom or FaceTime, where you split screen, right? Where we put, I mentioned this to you before we started talking, we put the laptop or an iPad on the dining room table.
Right.
We'll have a bite to eat or we'll have drinks, and everybody's sort of like doing their own thing, and it's almost like having dinner together, or having lunch together. And then we started to do it with a couple of couples that we know that we maybe don't. I mean, certainly a couple of people who we know well and really love and wanted to be in touch with, but also a couple of people who we might just know a little bit, but we're all in the same situation. And we've had some really, really fun, interesting sort of dinner dates or drink dates with people, just hearing about how they're dealing with stuff. And I think that the thing that you've been saying in a way, and we're both saying, is that this is a time to connect. This is a time to, especially to connect with people who you might know who are alone. And reach out to people, regularly. My son, the one who's single right now, Brandon, who you know all my sons, but Brandon is totally safe, but he's on his own. And so I check in with him maybe more periodically than I do the other two. And I finally just said yesterday, I said, how are you doing with loneliness? And he went, you haven't asked me that. And I'll be really honest with you. I'm doing okay, but yeah, I'm getting lonely.
Yeah.
Well, and he's got a great support system in a family who loves him. Imagine the people who don't really even have that. So, I've been making a point. I go through my phone and I'll go, oh, you know what? I want to check in on him or check in on her. Or I think that's a really, really important community.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, the reason I initiated the Sunday Zoom call is because in this atmosphere, I can't tell one day from another.
Right.
And so by doing something special on Sunday or Saturday or whatever, it puts a line, a mark, and says, okay, this is the end of the week and we're moving into another week. And what plans do you have? The things we can talk about. What are you guys doing? One of my first daughter, Bella, is very deep into learning things to do, organizations that'll shop for you, people that'll shop for you. Things like that. And she's become a real source of accurate and current information for us. And just, to share what each one of us is doing.
Yeah.
And this has been a time for art. I've been writing a little bit more. I've been learning to work my studio, which has taken me years.
Wow.
And I'm teaching Lisa's daughter how to record on Logic, and also Cody is learning to work the Pro Tools from my engineer, virtually.
Right.
And so he's going to come out of this with maybe being an engineer.
Who knows? That's cool.
There are things that we can do to keep in the loop. I'm working on my memoirs. I'm working on a television thing that's possible animation of the book I wrote about Footloose.
Oh, cool.
And so, there are things that are still moving forward. The creative arts can move forward. And a buddy of mine, I've been in a men's group for a couple of years now, all older men, all retired from successful businesses, all trying to reinvent themselves. And we sort of challenge each other to step up and do something, like one guy said, I've always wanted to play the guitar. Well, then fucking learn.
Right.
And here's my friend who can teach you. We have resources for each other. And
how many guys are in the group?
What's that?
How many guys are in the group?
5.
And you've been doing Zoom meetings with them, right?
Well, now, yeah.
But is it normally a time when you guys get together? You're all in Santa Barbara?
Yeah.
How did
all like-minded men, and all kind of going through the same period of our lives, which ironically is very similar to my 26-year-old, who's at, who am I now and what am I about to do in my life?
Right.
And we're all in the same place. We could have a sort of a subgroup of younger men or women, but the idea of men don't tend to communicate with themselves on a heartful level. It's not a male societal thing.
Right.
So we allow that to be part of it's actually the primary focus of our dialogue is, guys say, I'm having trouble with my wife, or can't communicate with my children. And we all pool our awareness of what that's like. What have I done to make that better? So it's a kind of a support group for being an older guy.
That's really cool. How did it start? How did you even get into the group?
Years ago, I was in a men's group for about 10 years, and it was really an interesting and enlivening, if you would, time for me. And I mentioned it to somebody about how I wished I could have another group of guys, and we thought about it and thought, well, who do we know that would be willing to step it up and tell the truth in a situation of a group of men? It's a tricky thing. Men love to bullshit each other.
Oh yeah.
We have images of what it's like to be a man that we have to portray to each other.
We have to. There's a level of bravado that we feel a need to protect, which is completely bullshit.
Yeah, and I think it's stripped away in times like this. Although it's that balancing act I find in my own life, that I want to be the courageous paternal character, the parental unit. I want to show my kids that I'm strong, I'm doing well. I don't want them to worry about me. And at the same time, I want to be honest and emotionally available. So it's a balance of that.
So weird you just said that. I had a really sweet text from a guy that I don't know him that well, but he always wanted to have a child. He'd had a couple of relationships, never had a baby. Didn't have a baby until he was 51. His first
Wow.
Had a son at 51 or 50, maybe even 52, because we're the same age. Holy shit, no, even older. So he was like 53 when his son was born, right?
Mm.
When his boy was just a couple months old, I had a toy piano delivered with his name on the top, and because I wanted, even though I don't know this particular guy that well, he's a funny guy, he's a really nice guy, and I just wanted to give his son something. And so he sent me a video last night, and he said, dude, every morning at 5:30, and he sent me a video, this little boy who's now 2.5, whatever, gets up and plays on this piano, and it's his ritual, right? And so we texted back and forth, and it hit me, and I texted him again this morning, and I said, one of the things you must be grateful for at a time like this is to be somebody's dad.
Mm.
That's the thing that I'm finding that I'm focusing on right now, is that even though my sons are all grown, I do feel like they're looking to me for strength right now. And simply the act of being somebody's dad and somebody's husband in a male way, not that it takes anything away from the women out there who are somebody's mom and somebody's wife, and but I'm personally finding that exact thing. I'm feeling like I'm happy to be the patriarch right now,
Mm-hmm. And it's more difficult when you're physically separated.
Yeah.
One of the things I did want to mention was the idea of the disparity between the concept of cooperation and competition.
Yeah.
We're seeing it dramatically in situations where people are hoarding, or
profiting,
or the profit that companies are getting on this disease by exploiting the things we need, like masks, and selling them to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And one could say there ought to be a law, except I think there is one. But I think that the law of karma comes into place here, that if you notice that there are companies exploiting this as an opportunity to line their pockets with things that people need to survive, then I think we need to make note of what those companies are, and try to avoid using them in the future.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, people call it the cancel culture, but in this case, I think it's really valid.
Yeah. We should be, in a perfect world, you share what you have, right? Because If you've got something that's going to keep other people alive, you should make it available. And to quadruple or more the price of your product is exploiting those in need.
In some cases, way more.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about the difference between what this looks like right now? And I want to phrase the question better. I've noticed that when I think back to the last time we as a nation needed to come together was when New York was attacked on 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I distinctly remember the aftermath of that horrific day. For weeks, if not months, a palpable sense of people being kinder to each other,
Mm-hmm.
being more feeling like a community, even a national community, if you will. Courtesy, kindness, concern.
I remember you brought this up with Kenny G.
Yes.
And I thought about it because I do have the same feeling, but I think that the culprit is we're up against two dramatically different things. Social distancing. I noticed that I even have to think twice before I hug my own son.
Right.
That there's a level of trust missing.
Yeah.
Because we have an invisible invader.
Yeah.
You know, this is a war we're in, and we're at war with an invisible enemy. And that makes everybody a little more scared, probably a lot more scared.
A lot more scared.
You know, we wanted to go to war with anybody after 9/11 if they could point at them and say they did it.
Right.
And that's how we got into war
With
at that time.
Yeah. That's an interesting point.
No, this is not that. We can't really connect the way we did after 9/11. And especially the New Yorkers who had been so intimately involved in that horrific disaster.
Dude, I never thought about it that way. You know, I mean, one of the ways that healing happened in the aftermath of that were people hugging each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, literally, that was a big part of it, was groups of people coming together and holding each other and consoling each other, and we can't do that.
Yeah, and it's got a lozenge, so I'm like, this is working way too well. Okay. Yeah, it's been scientifically proven that we need physical touch.
Yeah.
And so my primary person for hugging and connecting is Lisa, and we'll be watching TV at night. And you know what, it's just really important to have some kind of physical touch. So being alone is makes it a little bit more difficult, obviously. Yeah. But you mentioned your son and his loneliness, and I was talking to Cody, my second son, and I said, you know, one of the things I'm getting out of this is a deeper appreciation for connection, not only with my family, with the people I love and my friends. I think I'm now valuing my friendships more highly because I'm noticing how very fragile we all are and how any one of these friendships could disappear like that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm appreciating our connection. And he said, I'm the opposite. I'm appreciating how well I'm doing being alone.
Oh.
He said, I've never been good at being alone. And so this has forced me to really look at it and to work on it and to create, what am I trying to say? Like techniques or.
Yes, like sort of self-survival.
Yeah, self-soothing techniques, you know, for what do I do? Where do I exercise? How safe am I being in this or that? You know, how do I stay in connection with my friends, you know, using the internet?
Yeah.
I think that the both sides of the coin, you know, that he feels better about himself and how he's doing alone, even though he's in his mom's guest house. She doesn't go to that. She doesn't go and hang out with him.
Right.
She's being more like you, more super careful.
Yeah.
Your approach to it. I'm wanting to stay in touch with my kids, but really the only kids that I'm physically connected to in the same room with is Luke, my 26-year-old, and Cody. Occasionally, Cody and I will get together, but he's in his own circle.
But for instance, with Cody, for example, or even with Luke, who you said goes with his friend and they go surfing.
Yeah, the one friend.
Yeah. That friend lives with his family, I would imagine, right?
No, he lives here with Luke.
Oh, okay.
A few weeks ago, his girlfriend kicked him out.
Gotcha.
He was living in his car. He said, "Okay, well, you come here," and then the quarantine happened.
Right.
And he was a wild card for 2 weeks. Now he's not, and they're a closed system.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about it, because I think we're all wrestling. Those of us with families are all wrestling with, and we've touched on this, but we're all wrestling with a little bit of how paranoid should we get. And
I would change that to how aware should we get.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
But then again,
still a question.
It's still a question, because I can only be responsible for what I touch and what I.
Oh yeah, no, it's what is that term? There's a mathematic term for it. When you have 3 people in your loop and they have 3 people each in their loop, and
Existentially.
Something like that. That's not the word, but I get it.
Yeah. Well, anyway. I'd like to leave on a positive note, which is, I'm grateful that we can talk about stuff like this, because I think that even people that might be watching this who we will never meet will maybe have a moment like you and I have had watching that doctor in New York. I think there'll be bits of my conversation with Dr. Heisinger that will really help you and resonate with you. And I think that this is kind of what we need to be doing right now. We need to be giving each other as much comfort and information to feel comforted as possible.
Mm-hmm. Things we can work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the unknown, and that, as you pointed out, that shifting goal line of, well, what is the real problem and what am I really supposed to do about it? Well, yesterday you weren't supposed to do all that much. Now today, maybe you're going to wear a mask.
Right.
And then of course, where the hell do you get one?
Right.
But
again,
I want to end on the note
of N95 masks. We just need to cover.
Yeah, just cover for if we're sick, we don't want to spread it.
Exactly.
God forbid. But I want to end on a note of appreciation and gratitude, as you pointed out, the gratitude that we can sit here and talk about this, that we have a big enough nest egg that we can get through whatever difficult time is upon us.
Yeah.
But especially appreciation for the doctors, the healthcare people that are out there on the front lines. Man. They are this year's heroes.
They should be every year's heroes.
Yeah.
But
I mean, as far as you pointed out, 9/11, and it was more the first. We had the big fires and mudslides here in Santa Barbara. 22 people were killed in one night. I knew some of them. Yeah. Everybody knew somebody who was killed, and it was the first responders that went out there and found those bodies and saved some of the people who were under the mud.
Yeah.
This one girl young girl, teenage singer in town that I've worked with on a fundraiser, consequently, she was under the mud for 8 hours.
Wow.
They found her and pulled her out. There's amazing pictures of her just completely covered with mud. She lost her brother and her father that night.
Oh my God.
So the people who show up, the ones who show up for each of us, and now we in turn need to show up for them.
Yeah, and that means
continue.
Of course, medical personnel on the front lines, but also, like, I can't stress enough, these people that are going to grocery stores to work every day.
Yeah.
These people who are still driving buses, these people who are still delivering packages, food, vital necessities. These are people who we must never ever get back in a pattern of sort of overlooking or treating unlike we treat cops and firefighters and people who we perceive as being heroic. These people prove that in this situation, they're just as heroic and valuable as first responders.
Yeah.
And also the giving back. You know, I love sending people links to some charity organizations that I feel or I'm hearing are doing great things. I don't really I don't talk about it too much. Daisy and I are sort of taking care of people that we want to take care of and giving to who we want to give to privately. But, you know, I also think it's great for people, you know, friends like you and me, to trade that information and say, hey, just in case you're not aware, there's this really great organization. If you want to give some money to them, or if you want to do a do a shout out to them, whatever. I think that's a very important part of this community process, is to give as much support, both financially and just in terms of awareness, to the people who are really making a difference.
Yeah. I have an organization in Santa Barbara called Unity, which is still giving out food every day.
Yeah.
More and more people have lost their jobs,
Yeah.
lost their paychecks, in some cases lost their businesses. And Unity is just an organization that helps people in need. So it's not just
Right.
just as if it's like demeaning. That you have a core group of people who need more attention because they have no income or they're destitute in some way.
Yeah.
But we have this sort of, you know, when the fires come, we have a whole lot of people who don't have homes.
Yeah.
Mudslides, we have people who don't have homes.
Yeah.
And they need help. They need some way to have clothing. They need food, all the basic things. And so Unity supports everybody who's in need. And we've been doing that for 30 years now.
I know. I've been lucky enough to be part of a couple of those benefits that you've done for them.
Yeah, it's a great organization, and we have a disaster relief aspect of it now, that ever since the fires came.
Yeah.
And they're working full time.
Great.
So anyway,
my brother, stay safe and healthy, and thanks for hanging out with me for a bit. It's good to see you.
You too.
And let's be in touch next week and just check in with each other, okay?
All right, we'll have dinner.
Yeah, I love that. Love to everybody, man.
Bye-bye.